This is the 40-Year-Old Intern Podcast.
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 This is the 40-Year-Old Intern Podcast. This episode, we're talking all things functional nutrition and mental health. There are many ways to address mental wellness, and I'm so excited to bring Zaida Almanza to the conversation. Zaida lives in Nicaragua, a country with little resources for traditional mental health care. She's a functional nutrition consultant, holistic health specialist, and yoga instructor who has helped hundreds of women awaken to their own greatness, live free from diets, reconcile with their bodies, and heal health conditions to find wellness and balance in their lives. Her philosophy is at the forefront of a new holistic movement that integrates the body of functional nutrition and the science of yoga. The powerful connection between body, mind, and spirit is present in each of her programs. She was named an emerging female leader in the community by the U.S. Embassy in Nicaragua for empowering Nicaraguan women to take responsibility for their health and change lifestyle habits. Let's get started. How's it going?
I'm doing good. I'm doing like 1,000 things because I'm going to Ecuador on Monday.
Nice.
Yeah, we just got back, and you can imagine, get the kids to school and everything, and now getting ready for this trip. So yeah, exciting, but you know how it is.
Yep, never a dull moment. Why I'm so excited about this, I was thinking about it. I think when we first met, it was on that cruise.
Yes.
I want to say it was 2011. But ever since then, we've both been talking about mental health in different ways. And so it's so cool to see where it's gone for each of us since then.
It's amazing how it's taking you in this direction, like from in New York to like a different Danielle. You got it. Like this change, I love it. It's like you were following your actual self, that insight. So I love it.
I know. Yeah. Okay. So I was doing some research on Nicaragua. And correct me where I'm wrong, because I want to set the stage, though, for people who are unfamiliar with the landscape of healthcare in the country and why what you're doing is so critical. And also how that translates into areas in the States where there's also a real lack of just traditional healthcare models, especially around mental health. And then also there has been a big movement with people wanting to have more of this root cause functional medicine approach, which is super exciting. And I think there's a place for both. There's a place for the clinical traditional care, and then there's a place for this functional healthcare. I think they should overlap.
Definitely, because we need both.
But you're treating the system, and I have found more people I talk to, people I've worked with, that's what they're really interested in. And some people are only interested in that. They don't want the other traditional stuff. Some people want both. Some people are just curious about learning more about that and just the connection between our bodies and our minds, how it all connects together, the things we consume, how it impacts our thinking and even just our brain and inflammation and everything like that. So let me pull up some stats here because I thought it was really interesting. Now, the World Health Organization has this mental health atlas, and they released one in 2020. They give a profile of every country. And so for Nicaragua, they said there was 250 mental health professionals as of 2020 in the country. This is just mental health professionals. It doesn't have to be, those aren't necessarily like psychiatrists, but this is professionals.
Yeah.
Majority are in Managua, which is the capital.
Exactly. Yeah.
Biggest city. So there's a lot of people that live in rural areas that don't even have the opportunity to get to a professional if they wanted to. And then it also said there's only, I think it said 5 mental health outpatient facilities, and those are often under-resourced and don't have the funding that they need. And I believe one of the stats said that there was only 1% of the country's funding goes to mental health services.
Plus, it is horrible because I'll tell you what, that mental health facility that you're talking about, it is not for helping actually. It is when people don't want to have their...
Is it more of a psychiatric?
Yes, that's it.
What we might think of as old school psychiatric hospitals where people are being...
Just like, they're just there and they keep them alive, fed, but don't think they get out of there.
It's not a human approach. Yeah.
No, it's not humane. It's not.
What I find interesting is that you have a country with little resources, but you still have people that need the support. And so what you're doing is really cool because that's something that's scalable and people are really hungry for that community driven piece that they're missing often in the traditional care model. And so I want to know, how did you start it? I want to mention that you were recognized by the US Embassy in Nicaragua as an
Yes.
emerging leader in this space. And this is so cool. So how did you decide that this was the model you wanted to try out, and how have you gotten people on board with it?
So it started because my physical needs. First, I started yoga. I think yoga changed, in a way, scaled my consciousness to communicate better with my body and see myself as a three-dimensional being instead of just the physical isolated being. So I started getting more in touch with my thoughts and emotions just by listening and in stillness. And that started in when I was living in Singapore. I went to one of those yoga sessions when you're pregnant.
Oh yeah,
And
prenatal.
yeah, prenatal. And it was amazing. They helped us connect with the baby in a way that I have never felt before. And I said, there's something to this. Why I feel this? I'm feeling a lot, right? Like I
Yeah.
can feel stuff that I've never felt before. And it was then since then I discovered there was a whole world that I wasn't aware of.
Yep.
And I was not habitating my body consciously. So I had also many different ailments, like colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, gastritis. And I was told that I needed to live that way. Whatever it has to do with your intestines has to do with your mental health, right? That is a key element. And I didn't know, right? I had anxiety that I didn't know either. I didn't know people think it's normal and but
It's just
it's
a way of life. I have
yes,
anxiety and I have to live this way.
exactly. So it wasn't me. It was just my nervous system that was in the alert response, right?
Yep.
And I was always thinking that I would forget something, something bad's gonna happen, and
It's like you're
so
in survival mode.
yes, everything, even to little things. I didn't even have big things happening then
Yeah.
or problems that are important, but to me, little things felt huge.
Yeah.
And so I didn't
Well, and that's
know.
when your body is in that survival mode and you're feeling anxious or depressed, little things do feel enormous. Little things are really hard to do. And that is something that they sneak up on you. I was depressed when I was in college at 20, which you should be having the time of your life. And I hit this rocky moment, but it sneaks up on you. And when I look back, I'm like, yeah, I was struggling with just doing laundry and like basic things, but I didn't know that was depression. So it's those behavioral changes that we traditionally haven't been accustomed to being in tune with ourselves. And so
Yes.
the functional medicine and functional nutrition aspect seeks to understand how it's all connected. Do I have that right? And then
Yes.
where a traditional model is more like treating the symptom, and maybe there's a little overlap, but sometimes it's more of that. I think too, you mentioned something about yoga and how you were in touch. It's so funny. I did a prenatal yoga class also. I had the opposite experience. I hated it. And I hate it when it's quiet. What I think it comes down to is it's very hard to sit with yourself. And if you're truly being in tune, and I think it can feel scary to do that because it's not natural. We live in a world that's go and we don't take the time to sit with ourselves and really, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What does my body feel? And so that is
Yes.
what that yoga brings out. And I mentioned I had done a trauma informed yoga clinic. I took a class
Yes, you told
and it
me.
was eye opening. I thought, oh my gosh, I wish everyone could just understand where your body holds trauma. And it was just really fascinating. And I have a real appreciation for it. So I could see how that was like, you're feeling sick yourself. So the first thing was, I don't like the way I'm feeling. I'm not going to accept that I just have to feel this way. I'm going to find a different solution for me
Exactly.
first. And then it started working.
Exactly. That's how it happened for me. And I said, I am only 22 and I'm on 4 different pills.
Yeah.
And they told me that gastritis and irritable bowel syndrome doesn't have a cure. So that means I'll be taking this all my life. These medicines weren't even cheap and they're
Yeah.
not covered by the insurance. And I said, you know what? I'm going to find a way for me to heal myself. And so that's when I studied functional nutrition. And I learned that medicine is food is your medicine.
Yeah.
And that is the main thing that functional nutrition has to say. And that's what we offer to the world through that very detailed connection that we have mind body and all your habits
Yep.
have to do with the way you feel and how your body is functioning. And you can heal it with your habits, eating habits,
Right.
rest, hydration, movement. And so you actually have the power,
Yeah.
which before we thought that to put the power into a pill and to put
Right.
it is one doctor that's going to heal me. And in the meantime, I keep on doing the same. I keep on
I'm not changing my lifestyle at all. I'm just
exactly just being
right.
in the computer all day, eating Cheetos on the side. And
You said something that's interesting, and it comes up with any type of healthcare we have. We are accountable for our own health, the choices we make, mental health, physical health. There are things that you could have genetically or that you're born with, predisposed, of course, and you can treat and change your lifestyle in accordance to that. But I think there was for a long time, it seemed that things happened to me and I'm the victim of my health instead of my choices. And what I like about what you were recognized for, which is this accountability aspect, and even in clinical therapy, a lot of therapists lean into that accountability factor. We do have the power to change much of what we're dealing with. Now, there are certain disorders and things that cannot be quote unquote cured, but we can change our lifestyle. And maybe that means medication, maybe it doesn't. But we do have the accountability. And when you say you have the accountability, you have a different forcing mechanism on how you're living your life, which I
oh yeah,
like for people. Like you said, you can't just complain about how you feel and then eat a bag of Cheetos.
you you got yourself to this point. You
Yeah,
can get yourself out
you
of
can.
this,
And
right?
it's baby steps. It's learning about what it means and then it's feeling the difference. And it does have incredible mental health benefits. Even just clarity of thought. I even find myself, we were chatting coming out of the new year and I'm just, oh my gosh, I'm just like a slug. I'm foggy, my brain. Because I was eating and junk all for 2 weeks and just not taking care of myself. And so then you know how to get back and build. Once you have the systems in place, you know how to get back to them easier when you derail because it's not about being perfect, but it's about building those systems that keep you going.
Yes, I
Have
like
you
to
come
see
up?
it like a
Yeah, go ahead.
slack line, and it's you're always there balancing
Yeah.
and always going to the center. No matter what, you always go to the center. So the what I think is you need to first have the energy to do those changes,
Yeah.
and
You got to increase your
that's when
baseline.
yes, because if you don't have energy, you won't make any
No,
chance at all.
it's really hard to make or think about big changes when you're in crisis. And so that seems so far away. So you have to change your baseline, and doing that is just very small changes. You can't make the bigger changes while you're operating in
Yes,
from a
and
desperate
that's
position.
when the physical body is a vehicle for energy.
Mhm.
It's like our muscles are like little power banks that can give us that uplifting for starting the movement. And it's like a domino effect, right? You
Yep.
need that the first one to come and give you
Yep.
the push that you need. And that is where the food you eat,
Yep.
movement, and rest are so important to start doing the big changes. You start
Yes.
really small, right? There's many tools like the breath,
Hmm.
which are
The breathing and
very,
stuff like that.
the breath is one of the best tools we have for energy, and people don't use it, and we have
Mhm.
it right there.
I think people don't even realize they breathe. I think of us myself sometimes when I'm trying to do something and I'll take a really deep breath and I'll think back, have I been breathing? Or like, what am I doing? I'm holding all this tension and this stuff in my body and I'm not even breathing in a way that can help me. So
Yeah.
it's starting at the base of understanding just where are you operating today and what is it telling you and why, and then how you can build that. What I love about it is it for people who are maybe turned off by traditional mental health care And I believe in traditional mental health care, but it's not for everyone. And so the big thing is we don't want people abandoning their mental health or the care around it because they don't see themselves in the current systems or models. And this is one area that's taken off and can really help in areas where there's people don't even have access to other options anyway. How have you felt like, so the functional medicine part is one, but then it's the community part that you bring into it, which I love with some of the retreats you do. The US Surgeon General, the administrations are changing here. And he just came out saying how Americans are just, and I'm sure this could be everywhere, we're so lonely. We don't have that community feel anymore. And so I have found when I've gotten involved in different community programs, and I don't mean community mental health programs, community programs around a different type of topic that impacts your mental health. So it could be food, it could be yoga, it could be just groups, peer support, things like that. People are craving that community. And I love that you bring that aspect to some of the retreats and things that you do. And I'd be curious what people come in with their perception of it and how they leave when they leave.
I started with retreats because one retreat actually changed my life. And I was just 16. And I thought I was the only one with problems, right? At 16, not having anxiety, like,
No one was
over.
talking about it back when we were 16. No one
No,
was talking
I
about it.
didn't know it was anxiety. All I
I didn't
knew
even know,
is
yeah, I was going to say, you didn't even know have a name for it.
I had a test. I remember I needed to go to a biology test and I couldn't even go to school because I was shaking and crying
Yeah.
because I didn't feel ready for it. And I didn't know. I thought it was normal, and then it was my problems and it was me, right? So I started going to this group. It was a youth group from church.
Mm-hmm.
And they took me to this retreat. And oh my God, I'm like, we were like getting uplifting stories from other people. And I'm like, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he has it even worse than me.
I'm actually doing pretty well.
I'm actually not so bad. And just to listen how they overcame situations and all the tools that they're using and feeling like a community. I remember always getting out of retreats with a big smile. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? I want to do that when I'm older. And I didn't know what I was going to be, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything, but I'm like, I want people to feel like that.
Yeah.
How amazing. And so after, when I had the yoga plus the nutrition part, there's this big thing that people like to go to detox. You've
Oh,
heard
yeah.
it's very in. So I think that's the catch, right? People love the detox part. And also the other thing that brings the attention of a women that goes to this retreat is to rest. We don't give ourselves the time for ourselves to do the things that we like. So in my retreats, we don't only do yoga. It's like we have very nutritious food. We actually have a party. We dance. We
Yeah.
have pajama party. We like dress up. We like go back to our basics, like for like when you're a kid, without being worried of who you are. Or I've
How you're going
had
to be perceived. Yeah.
Yes, I've had like managers of hotels, and I've had bankers, and nobody knows because they can't say what they do, right? Like in the retreat,
Yeah.
when they introduce themselves, they need to say what they like to do, like in the
Not
in the
about, yeah, it's
spare
not about your
time.
career.
Nothing. So over there, nobody knows them,
Yeah.
and they can be themselves, and they're in a safe place where they can enjoy life,
Yeah.
right? And they can rest. We go to bed early, we get up early, we enjoy sunlight, and it's unbelievable what food does. And also the connection, the real connection to people. We have this mask, which is our title, our
Yeah.
roles and responsibilities, and that keeps us from finding that deeper you.
Yep.
And that is the main thing that I do in retreats. I like to have people to come and remember who they really are, and then get excited about their lives again.
Because we don't allow ourselves to really spend time thinking about ourselves that way. So that time away to be able to shut down and think and be fed nutritious foods. Some of the things you're saying, just sunlight, seeing the sun, I feel it because we live in Michigan and it can be really gray in the winter and it's depressing. And I feel myself like on those days, I'm like, I got to force myself to do something. And so I love the idea that we have that control over so much more than we think we do when it comes to our health.
And you said a word that is a key. We got to force ourselves.
You got to force it.
And people need to understand that it's not that you get up happy to go to the
Yeah.
gym. Some days, maybe, yeah.
Right.
Some days it depends on
I never do.
our
I
cycle.
never am really happy about it, but you feel so good coming out.
Exactly. And you're putting your tennis shoes on and you're like, "Ugh." And that's okay. But you force yourself.
Force yourself.
And we call what I like to call it is in the real meaning of sacrifice, which is abstinence from something, knowing that is for a greater good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you maybe have abstinence of sleeping in, or abstinence of staying home, abstinence from eating that second plate, whatever, just because you have your commitment for a greater good. But you need to believe that you really want it.
Yeah.
The reason why people don't do those changes is because they're really not that important for them. And
Yeah.
that's what I found out. Whatever you think it's important, you're going to do it.
Right.
We are.
And that goes back to the accountability, right? You can only complain so much about how you feel and your thoughts and these things, because if you aren't willing to make the changes, and they're hard, it's hard to change. Even when you want to change, it's hard to change.
Yes.
And so it's just like you said, no one's waking up every day with 100% motivation. It's the discipline around, I just want something better for myself. And so I have to do this. I'm going to force myself to do this, because if I don't, I know I'm going to not feel good or whatever it might be. And yeah, your want for the outcome has to be stronger than your will in the moment, because sometimes our will is not there at all. I remember when I was really depressed in college, I had started seeing a therapist, and my parents flew me home. I was in South Carolina. They flew me back up to Michigan, and I had no energy. I was really in a bad spot. I had gained weight. And so when I got home, I remember my parents would make me go to the gym every day. And it wasn't about the weight. It was to feel better, try to get the endorphins going and start feeling good. And I remember getting there and just getting on the treadmill and just hating every step, just hating and hating. But enough of that over time, and in combination with therapy and following the system, following the process. And so now I know when I start to feel off or down, or you got to get moving, I have to make a change, or else the fear for me is I don't want to ever feel that way again. That's been 20 years of that.
And we
You know
need
what I
to
mean?
understand that nobody is extinct, or I don't know what's the word, but it's not,
No
I'm
one's
not an
immune from
exception.
it.
Yeah, we can all have depression, anxiety, or any
Yeah.
other cognitive or emotional problem if we let it build up. So the thing is, I see it as a purification process. You purify your mind, you purify your body. It's very important that we set that scale, and we can recognize how am I right now? Am I
Yes.
like.
So how do you find that people in Nicaragua go about mental health treatment when there's not a lot of traditional options? Yeah.
First, there's a lot, like you said, self-diagnosis. Like
Yeah.
people, they still have that. There's the stigma about mental health being only for crazy people. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, here in Nicaragua, is no, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to.
We all have mental health, just like we have physical health. It's just
Exactly.
what state is it in? Yeah.
They don't. A lot of people don't see the need to visit a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So what they do is they research this and this, and then they get maybe a supplement. So that's how a lot of people do it. And then when they're really bad, then they go to a psychologist or psychiatrist. There's some doctors that are very just the classical doctor, traditional. And there's also now a lot of movements starting in Nicaragua, which I love, and it's compassionate inquiry. Have you heard of Dr. Gabor Mate?
Okay.
He's just an MD doctor, right, from Canada, and because his patients always had emotional problems, they would talk to him a lot, and he noticed how talking to him would help his patient. So he developed a method, and it's called compassionate inquiry. And now psychologists are getting his method, like they're studying his method to be able to approach trauma and addictions in a way, in a different way, that it's not the clinical only,
Yeah.
right? And not the diagnosis. I think many of the diagnoses that mental health therapists have, I think not all of us fit into something.
Yeah.
And that's the where the functional nutrition and other integrative professionals can come and help and add their expertise for a more individual and
Yeah.
more specific need that you might have, right?
It's holistic. The struggle with, I think that diagnosing can be so useful for treatment planning, but there's a lot of co-occurring disorders. It's so nuanced, right? We don't just come in with one thing and that's the one thing, and then we go out with the one thing answer. That's not how it works. And especially with trauma, the state
Yes.
of our mental health. But I think that the diagnosing where it goes wrong is then people can have a tendency to become their thing, or it used as a crutch. Oh, I'm an addict, or I'm depressed, or I'm anxious. I'm an anxious person. It's just who I am. No. Oh,
Exactly.
I'm an addict. I made a bad choice. No, you have an addiction. You are struggling with depression. I like the way the language is moving in that direction. And I think there are some people who are really scared of what a diagnosis might mean. And so that's where it can be, I think, unfortunately dangerous. Really, it's like, I'm struggling, I'm here because I'm struggling. How do I just start to feel better? And then that the diagnosing part, it's a really interesting conversation on the diagnosis piece.
Focus on the what is around this person's life, right? What are you going through? And
Yeah, the
it's just a
holistic approach.
phase.
And
Yes, a
so many people are
holistic.
really interested in that. So if somebody wanted to look into working with someone like yourself, where do they begin? Where do they begin trying to find, and it doesn't have to be you personally. So there's the functional nutrition, functional medicine, and how do you go about assessing if someone's the right person to work with, and if it needs to be in addition to current care or
In United States, there's a board of all the certified
functional
holistic
doctors? Hmm.
functional doctors and functional nutrition consultants like myself, right? So first you go and you go to the list of the certified ones, and then you need to see the page, the website, to see
Yeah.
which one it have resonates with you, right?
That's the
Because
hard thing about it. I think picking a clinician for healthcare is, it's so hard to look at someone on the screen. And this is where I think social media is a benefit to providers, is that I've always struggled, whether it's a therapist or a functional doctor, you see this person's face on a page and their bio and everything. It sounds like everybody else's. And you're like, basically, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, do I want to work with a man or a woman? It's just so silly. But when you see someone on social media, that to me, you actually do get a little bit more of their personality. You hear how they talk. So that's cool. Maybe it's that people can also look them up if people are on
yeah,
social media. It's a
social
great way to
media
know people in that way.
definitely helps. Social media definitely helps in that way. So you can
Yeah.
look them up and see what their approach is also. There's some professionals more into more things. Like for me, because I am a yoga instructor as
Yep.
well, then you'll get a lot of
That comes
tools,
through in your practice.
yeah, to work with your nervous system, right? Because
Yeah.
yoga, it's all about calming and take your nervous system to that parasympathetic stage. And it depends also on the personality of doctors, of professionals. So it depends on what you like, and you'll see it in social media,
Yeah.
a little bit of that. I wanted to say something very important that I don't think we've talked about, and it's that we're very influenced by sugar,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're being poisoned with all the food, because every package of food, it's even in the bread, it's in the ketchup, it's in everywhere, and the amount of sugar we're getting, it's damaging our microbiome. And so one of the big things, if somebody wants to start with helping themselves
Yeah.
with any sort of problem, emotions, these repetitive
Physical,
thoughts,
especially.
energy, just a lot of people are just exhausted now. You can't
Yeah.
find anybody that you ask them and you're like, how are you? Oh, super tired. Everybody's
It's so
tired.
true.
And it, the food that you eat needs to be with no sugar, like
Yeah.
starting at
The
breakfast, right?
overprocessed. Yeah.
Yes,
The
all the
overprocessed
process,
sugars.
the chemicals, and people don't know that breath, like actually long exhales, help um, build back your microbiome. So just by having long exhales, and people don't have long exhales, pretty much never. You
Yeah.
have long inhales.
Yeah.
Nobody, and then your exhale is. That's part of what I teach, and just having all the tools within yourself
Yeah.
and the food that you have around you. And there's a lot of fear. Sometimes the people that try to eat healthy, they have a fear of fats, and that also is depleting people from vitamin
Yes.
D.
Like fat is not bad for you. There's a
Yes.
lot of that old 90s lingering around where it was everything was fat free and just filled with more junk. A marketing scheme, really. I love that. I think that's a great. If you want to start with something today, look at what you're eating. How much of your food choices are processed? If you're not someone who's already pays attention to things with nutrition, it can be overwhelming to look at ingredients. I don't think you even have to start with that. It's the basics. Is this processed or is it a whole food?
Yeah.
And there's actually an app, I don't know if you've used it, called Yuka.
No.
Oh my gosh. Good luck once you start. Because so what you do is you go to the grocery store and you scan a barcode and it will give you on the back, it'll rate it poor, bad, red, medium, like
Oh my
yellow,
God, I
green,
love
good.
it.
And it gives you recommendations for other better options. And so it's really fascinating. And I've done it where I'm just paralyzed in an aisle because I'll think something is good for me or it's marketed
Mhm.
that way and I'll scan it and I'm like, what? 0 out of 100. So it's definitely made me,
Wow.
for one, I don't have to be so knowledgeable about every ingredient because I'm not. I do know the basics, but it's just easy to just run through and just be like, okay, there's a better option, this, whatever. So starting, like you
That's
said, with that.
great.
Yeah. And
I
then,
need to get
yeah,
that
you got
out.
to try it out and tell me what you think. And the other thing I can do to your point is keep a notebook of just how they feel throughout the day and what happened before that is always an interesting reflection back to you. Sometimes it is very obvious things that can be changed just by the
Yes.
choices that we're making in
It's
our lifestyle.
because we always have a story behind the back
Yeah,
of the
we tell
head.
ourselves a lot of stories.
Yes, we're telling, oh, poor me. Nobody loves me. Oh, I have to do everything on my own. So if you start writing and you
Yes.
are aware of that story that you're telling yourself about yourself
Yeah.
today, then you'll do something to change it. And
Hmm.
that's how we rewire
Yeah.
our thoughts. And I think reflective writing is amazing.
Yeah.
And just getting some pause
Yeah.
in
It's a
the
feedback loop with yourself. So if you write it down, quick notes, doesn't have to be anything crazy, it can really help you at least begin to see patterns for yourself. And again, it goes back to that accountability aspect of we are and can be accountable for our own health, mental health. And it feels
Yes,
good when you are. It feels good when you start to see those little things happening. It doesn't take a lot to start to notice stuff.
I know. And it's amazing too. Women in our age, we're in our 40s, right?
Yeah.
It's very important that we actually go and do a med check for our hormones.
Yeah.
And we need to know exactly what's going on. And
Yeah.
because sometimes we're depressed, and it's because we are depleted
Yeah.
of nutrients, we are low in vitamin D, and or we have excess estrogen, and which is not the good estrogen, but the estrogen for the menopause, that is a different one, and or low progesterone. So it's very good that we check, yes, and that will help, just that having that consciousness of what's going on in your body, in your mind. How are you? How are all your how do you say when your reserves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
How are they? And then just make sure you are filling yourself with all those things that you
yeah,
actually need. It'll help a lot, but we need to give ourselves time. That
yeah.
it's not somebody that is going to come and fix you. It
Right.
is you every day, right?
It's a mindset shift because when we were growing up, it was we didn't have access to so much information. And so in some ways the providers held the keys to the castle and you went to them and they told you what to do and you either did it or didn't do it, but we didn't know a lot about ourselves.
No,
And now there is this big shift and movement where patients want their own, they're very curious about themselves. They want to know more about themselves. They want their own patient data and access to things like you're talking about. You talked about this as something before, but like this empowerment model. And that is
exactly.
empowering to know about yourself and how you can, no one's coming to save you. And that's the truth. And so, how are you going to get control over your own mental health? So,
Exactly. Exactly. And mental health is your,
tied to everything else.
yeah, it's your whole health
Yeah.
because there's this double connection, the feedback loop
Yep.
that the body and the mind have. And so if one is not good, the other one won't be
Right.
eventually. Maybe right now you're fine, but wait a
Yep.
couple years, it
That's
start
so
adding up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I love what you're doing. I'm going to come to one of your retreats one day, even though I'm not good at yoga.
Oh
And
no,
I'm
you
going to
know,
come.
and yeah, actually, I yesterday I did a workshop on the myths of yoga
Hmm.
and how understanding the science behind yoga, and it was interesting. Everybody thinks they're
Yeah.
afraid of going in a class and thinking they're gonna be bad at it. I'm like, you can't be bad at yoga. People don't understand that you can't be
Oh
bad
my
at
gosh.
yoga.
When I was pregnant in New York, one of my girlfriends had asked me to go to this prenatal class, and I was a few months ahead of her. And at the end, it was towards the end of my pregnancy, and you're just larger than life, not moving well. And so I said I would go with her. And it was so funny. I think back to this all the time. It's in this tiny little place in New York. And we walk in and she's really cute, got everything like, and I'm like a freaking bull in a china shop. Come in, I've got a coffee in my hand. I'm just like the Kool-Aid commercial where the guy bursts through the wall. That's what I'm like. I come in and I'm trying to get situated with all the materials you have, which I have no idea what they're for. And I'm spilling my coffee. And in my head, this is the least peaceful and like in connection. And I just always laugh back to that. But
Yeah.
I definitely want to come to one of your programs. I want to share it with people too. When we share this out, I'll put all your information. Okay, four rapid round questions, then we're done. One food or recipe that you believe boosts mental clarity and focus.
Actually, for mental clarity and focus, I would say fast.
Fast?
Oh my God, yeah. Like that is exactly. Or if you can't fast, then just have greens
Greens.
because you need to be light and the calm that comes from plants,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And it's better if it's raw,
Yeah.
right? When you want to focus and you want to be energetic and but also calm,
Yeah.
then a good salad is the best. And
Yeah.
always remember that salads are always better when you use dark leafy greens. The lighter leafy greens don't have much nutrients
Yeah.
as like kale
Yeah.
or
Like a
arugula or
spinach or something.
spinach.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the best. And if not, fast because fasting automatically brings your awareness in a higher level because
Hmm.
that's when you fast is because you in the past you're supposed to be ready to hunt.
I like that. Your favorite yoga pose for calming anxiety.
There's one that's called makarasana, and it's you put your hands like that one, your left elbow down and then your right wrist on top of it,
Okay.
and you lay on the floor with your head on your arms like this,
Uh-huh.
and you open your legs wide while you're laying down on your tummy, right? So you're like this,
Hmm.
and it's called Makarasana. I know you cannot do it at work, right?
I
Unless you have
mean,
your own office, you lock the door.
there's
But
worse things people could do.
what this does is automatically, because your chest gets a little off the ground, it forces the air go all the way to your diaphragm and makes deep breath. It allows you to have naturally deep breaths. And also because your head is close to the ground and anxiety is air energy, it's a lot of thoughts, and you need like a, I want to say it in Spanish. You have those lightning that go and stroke in the land in a pole.
Yeah.
And so you need something to bring all
To
those
ground
thoughts.
yourself. Like,
Yes, you need to
yeah.
ground, to
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
And so you need to be close to the ground when you have anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the best.
A good
You
grounding technique. Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so that
I
pose
love that.
helps you breathe, and your parasympathetic nervous system gets activated with the long diaphragmatic
Yeah.
breath breathing. So that helps a lot. Plus,
Oh,
it gives you a lot of rest. It's beautiful.
that
You need
sounds
to
great.
try.
I might try try today. Okay. What's one habit anyone can adopt to improve their mental well-being today?
We talked about the writing,
Yeah,
right?
I like that one a lot.
So one thing that it helps me a lot for mental health, and it's very simple. I don't like to give like very
No, no one wants super complicated
exotic
homework.
stuff. No, it's just walking barefoot in the grass. If you have a
Yeah.
little piece of grass, and if not, just go to a place where with there's lots of plants
Yeah.
and
Nature.
just yes, just nature, being around nature,
Yeah.
contemplating every little detail. Let's say contemplate a tree and just start looking at the all
Oh, I love that.
the little leaves,
Yeah.
how the little ants that live in the tree, and just contemplation is
Mm-hmm.
amazing for mental health. And it really helps you calm down just by being there, feeling the breeze,
Yeah.
looking at the sun, looking at the birds, just because just being present, which is
Yeah.
something we don't do often,
No.
being present gives a lot of pleasure to the body
Yeah.
and the mind, and just feeling that pleasure helps you feel better right away.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. We moved up to Michigan, like I said, lived in New York, lived in Chicago for majority of my adult life, and in just busy, bustling areas, which I love. And I never ever thought we would leave those cities. And then during the pandemic, we had moved out to the suburbs, and we lived in a really lovely suburb, but we were coming up to Michigan all the time this summer by the water, which is where
Mhm.
I grew up. I grew up by the water, and I just craved it and craved it. So we moved up to Michigan, this little beach town. And for me personally, I drive by the water. I like to be by it. If I can walk by it, run by it, it just gives me this sense of calm. And it's almost like you're looking, it's so vast and it's big, and there's a lot of research around water too and nature when it comes to
Oh my God.
its
Yeah.
healing
And
abilities. But
fire.
like you
It's
said, it's something that costs nothing, really. If you have a safe area, you can go, so long as you can go somewhere safe. That can help so much. So I love that one so much.
I am so happy that you
And you guys you'll have to come up here. We'll have a place
yeah.
for you to stay, and it'll be great.
Oh,
And then,
I'm so
okay,
excited.
last one. This is a really cool one, and this is super important. How can someone create a mental health retreat at home? Our home environment is, people don't realize the impact it has on your mental well-being, whether that's clutter or chaos or if it's clean. So I think calming, how would you suggest people look around their own environment to see how they could improve that for their mental well-being?
The first thing is declutter.
Yeah.
And that can be as deep as you can do it, but it doesn't have to,
You don't have to
right?
become a full-on minimalist, but get rid of the clutter. Yeah.
Yes, it's very important that even you make your bed, just make
Yeah.
your bed and have that couch tidy, not the cushions all like that and the blanket. And having plants inside the house also helps a lot.
Yeah.
I love having my plants. This is
What
actually
do you,
my
I have to get
bedroom.
fake. I'm going to have to get fake ones because I'm like a plant killer through and through.
Oh.
So I'm going to, or those self-watering ones, maybe.
Also taking care of plants, it's very calming. So maybe that's one of the New Year's
Be
resolutions.
mine. I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna get a cactus.
It's very
Um,
calming, and for me, just let the light get in. Open the
yeah, the light.
curtains. Yes, open the curtains and get out of your bed, man. Really. I know we can all work from bed and
No,
it's
it's
super
horrible for your mental
comfy.
health, though.
Yes, but it just doesn't help. And
Yeah.
what I do also, because I work from home, coaching or doing online workshops, it's very important that even if we don't have to be in the camera, go and get
Take a
yourself
shower.
pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get
get yourself pretty.
Yeah.
You
Feel
look
good
good
about
for
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
feel good. Also, remember to have your water everywhere you are,
Yeah.
right? Like I have it right there in my nightstand so
Yep.
that I remember to see it and drink so that
Water is
you
a big
know.
one. That's one of my
Mhm.
goals.
So that
Really
you
bad with
know how
water.
much you drink. If you have
Hmm.
a 1 little bottle, at least, oh, I'm gonna drink 3 of those, and
Yeah.
so that's important. So if you want to have a mental health retreat in your own house, then play that beautiful music, calming frequencies. There's you can look it up on Spotify. You put abundance frequency or you put
Yeah.
calm frequency, God frequency, and I have it on all the time. I don't know if you can hear right now, it's very loud, but I have it
I love
on
that.
through the day. Is
Yeah.
this frequency just giving me peace, and just having it doesn't have to be like a big
It doesn't have to
deal.
be complicated.
No.
If we think people are coming over, you want to have your home a certain way, but we don't do that for ourselves when it comes to just our day to day. And it makes such a big difference to have a clean space to work or whatever you're doing, because cluttered space is like a cluttered mind.
Yes.
So yeah, and the light, and I love the plants. I do want to try that because I love plants too in theory. I'm not but it's super simple. All of this stuff we talked about today, this is what my favorite thing about this conversation is, that it's not overly complicated. It's just picking a place to start
Yeah.
and not feeling let down by not getting it perfect, but working through a setback or working through like tweaking your own thing as you go, but realizing that it all is connected to how we feel and our mental health.
Technically, everything is connected, and we're all individuals, and everything matters. Everything counts.
Yeah.
We
Very
have the
intentional about what we
opportunity,
live.
and I'm so happy that you invited me. Had
Thank you
a
so
lot of
much.
fun.
Yes, this was
and
awesome.
and what you're doing is
The next time we
delicious.
talk, we're going to be in person, whether it's in
Yes,
Nicaragua, which we have to get back, or Florida, wherever, or up
or
here.
in Michigan.
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Zaida. It was so fun talking to you.
Oh, thank you, Danielle.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.